Okay, this is episode 2, and today we are gonna talk about investment ideas, trading discipline. Quite different from the beta test episode 1. And today I bring along with me a friend that I've known for more than 10 years. He, like myself, also came from Canada, but he is an authentic CBC, Canadian-born Chinese. His name is Darren Chu. So Darren was with the Montreal Stock Exchange and then with another exchange, which he's going to talk more about that later. But he represents a company called Tradable Patents. And it's actually producing institutional research for investors right now. So Darren, it's good to have you appearing at this channel. It's called the Ed Chin channel. So even though we are covering a lot about current affairs, democracy issues, but on other topics as well, like trading ideas and financial planning. So it's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Ed.
Yeah.
Always good to.
Yeah, so let's go back in time. How did we actually meet? We had a mutual friend, right, who actually appeared on our show as well. Norman, right? Is it through Norman Sung that we got to know each other through him?
Yeah, I believe Norman recommended that I reach out to you back before my first business trip to Hong Kong when I was still living in Canada. So I was working for the Montreal Exchange and had a week of business meetings. I was planning for Singapore and Hong Kong. So it was that year in 2008 that we met, I believe. And Norman, I've known for a couple of years prior to that.
Right.
He used to work at TD Waterhouse, right, and Scotia McLeod in Vancouver. And so I met Norman when I was giving some options presentations at his branch that he used to manage, specifically in Richmond. So that's a connection.
Okay. Now, you have been living in Asia for around 10 years now, and you are currently in Singapore. You are a permanent resident, I guess, in Singapore right now, right? No intention of moving back.
Yeah, that's right. So I obtained the PR back in 2012, shortly after coming out to Singapore. And so I still have the Canadian citizenship, but Singapore has been treating me very well. I mean, it's a nice place, as you know.
And a lot of people are thinking about leaving Hong Kong because of different issues, and probably you heard about we just got this enactment of the national security law, and then it scared a lot of people. And then, of course, today we're not going to talk about the social political issues that we are facing. You are more like a trader's guy, so let's stick back to what we originally planned to discuss, which is trading. Now, technical analysis. There are many different ways and to go into and drill into this topic. When you talk about a big hedge fund who is like a CTA, commodity trading advisor, they use technical analysis. Now, if you want to say it in a more glorified way, some people say these days these are like quantitative trading. So what type of trading methodologies do you use? Do you use mostly technical to extract returns from the market, or other things? Tell us.
I would say, perhaps up to 2/3 of the weighting in my decision making before I put on a trade comes down to the patterns that I see. hence the company name, tradable patterns. So I do feel that my approach to technical analysis is pretty mainstream. It's not really all that secretive. There are loads of traders who trade the way I do. I believe in sort of the idea that if enough traders trade a certain way, you can just ride that momentum that comes behind that unified approach. So for certain indicators or signals that I look for instance, something described as a double bottom would generally be considered bullish. If enough traders believe in that pattern, observe it, and act on it the same way or similarly to how I would, then it creates an opportunity on a bounce, a bullish reversal to the upside. So that's just an example of how I would take advantage of momentum aiding me in my efforts. So a lot of the times, I trade based on trends that are about to reverse. So I try to spot a major or minor trend reversal, usually before the herd. And so, sometimes I get in a little early, and a lot of traders, they'll wait a little longer for so-called confirmation. Mm-hmm. I tend to get in a little earlier, and of course there is some risk to that, but a lot of the biggest gains are actually at getting on the reversal. A lot of the best risk-reward trades, in my opinion, are near the early stages of those reversals. But obviously, there are these instances where I am hurt by getting in too early. So that's what I would caution some of your listeners against.
So, for instance, would you consider like an exhaustion as some sort of a trend reversal? Jim Rogers and George Soros were saying probably we will be facing one of the, not catastrophe, but one of the big so-called reversals since the Second World War. Probably much bigger than the 2008 financial crisis. So nobody knows, and it seems like Warren Buffett quite recently, just for the first time, add a gold company into his portfolio, which is a Barrick Gold. So is everyone looking for some sort of a reversal right now?
Right. Yeah. Well, so there's an ample number of luminary investors like Warren Buffett who have that same view, and many have actually flocked to gold much earlier, along with Bitcoin, and done the reverse of going long the U.S. dollar rather, which is to divest from the U.S. dollar. So we've seen a lot of medium-term downside action on the U.S. dollar of late, and I would say, look, a lot of the debt issues that we see globally in much of the world, whether we're talking developed or undeveloped, less developed countries, all those debt issues, they actually already were quite severe pre-COVID, but after COVID, with all the government stimulus, bailouts, a lot of that had to be financed by money expansion, right? And central bank balance sheet expansion. So that's been very much reflected in the way gold and Bitcoin and some other, call it, inverse plays on the U.S. dollar have performed. So it's look, it's a trade that, at least on the currency and precious metals front, I feel might be a little long in the tooth, but certainly you don't see that really reflected in U.S. equities, right? So with U.S. equities, because of the bailouts and all the cheap money or free money, a lot of it's just been pouring into U.S. equities, and especially into the techs, right? So the big question then, of course, is, okay, so when does this all tip over? So on the S&P 500, we just actually more or less broke the record high from pre-COVID, from February, right? So in technical analysis jargon, there might be a double top forming. We really need to see the S&P 500 keel over from here for it to be officially declared a double top, but
Right.
it's
Right.
but it's very vulnerable to doing so right now.
Yeah, and we only got less than 80 days before the U.S. presidential election, and if we go back in history, usually the incumbent, no matter how bad or nasty that person is, usually if the stock market is doing great, he could win. And if you take a look at the stock market recently, I think Apple Computer, now it's just called Apple, of course, just touched the 2 trillion market capitalization just a few trading days ago. And as you alluded to earlier, S&P hit the pre-COVID record high, and I think same thing with NASDAQ. Going more from a personal trading front, how did you manage the volatility? I know you have a model trading portfolio yourself, even though your main business is produce this daily newsletter for sophisticated investors and also for institutional. Now, how did you do in terms of prediction? And it's something that happened not quite frequently. I mean, from mid-February to late March, and it's quite unprecedented. Dow Jones dropped from, I think, 29,500 to as low as like 18,000 level, and some hedge funds actually got killed, and then they have to shut down the fund because the drawdown was more than 40% in just one calendar month. And tell me about your experience during that 6 weeks period.
Yeah, I would say that I've been surprised by how long the rally has lasted. Initially, I expected, and I have the archive newsletter content to kind of demonstrate this. I basically advised some of my readers of the bottoming or short-term balance opportunity in the NASDAQ 100 or S&P 500 back around the bottom, but I really was only calling for a multi-week type rally. I didn't expect it to be as long as it has been, 6 months long almost. And so we're definitely in unprecedented territory, and obviously we've seen these kind of central bank actions in the past, and whether it's quantitative easing out of Europe, out of the States, and how it's had its impact on equities, but this, I would say, just the momentum, especially on the NASDAQ, on techs, and mind you, what a lot of people might not understand is it's really this upward momentum is really concentrated in some of the FANGs, right, or most of the FANGs. Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Amazon, and Google, and you can throw Microsoft in there too. But basically, we have a high concentration in I guess
just a few stocks, the FANG ones, yeah.
Just a very select few, right? And so if you look at the rest of the S&P 500 or the rest of the NASDAQ 100, even you don't have that kind of record high type territory that we're seeing with the FANGs, and not all the FANGs are at record levels. I mean, Netflix had a bit of a dip these last couple months, but look, regardless, I guess the big question now is, on everyone's mind is, okay, so what now? The NASDAQ has actually been making new records for months now, right? And the S&P 500 and the Dow were laggards in that respect, only reaching, in the case of the S&P 500, I guess the record high was intraday made sometime early this week or late last week, not exactly sure, but it's in my mind it's not sustainable. It's very, very dangerous to be buying these levels. And if you look at what Warren Buffett has done, I mean, he sold out of some of his core holdings in Wells Fargo and names
A lot of banking and also airline stocks for them.
Yeah, Delta maybe. I can't remember if it was Delta or United or. Anyways, he sold a lot of those back in, I guess just a couple months back, and I mean we also have seen some tremendously distorted price action. Some of these stocks are widely followed by the so-called Robinhooders, right? So all these millennials, but not just millennials, but a lot of retail traders who piled into companies like Hertz, the car rental company in the States, which is trading at I think about $1.50. I mean, it's had some wildly volatile moves, just to the obviously to the downside. It's a company going bankrupt, but also to the upside. So after Carl Icahn sold most of his holdings a few months back at, I think his last holding was sold around 70 cents. And I believe within a couple weeks of that, maybe a month, a Hertz ran up to $5 or something. I mean, it was just something that you wouldn't expect based on the bankruptcy that's lying before it. And so it's, I guess, a market which, I mean, not just Hertz, but in general, these are markets which have completely detached from fundamentals.
Now, due to time constraint, Darren, we only got around 2 more minutes to go. Can I ask you how you produce your newsletter, your daily newsletter? What is your typical day like?
Yeah, so I'm typically writing my newsletter from a little after my breakfast time, and because I trade late at night, I sometimes sleep in a little bit each morning, and I start my newsletter maybe around 10:30, and I'll write it until maybe 1 o'clock, 1:30, right before this recording, actually. And because I now also have a daily coffee newsletter, which I produce for a large food distributor, I have to get that out before I can have lunch for sure, but also before my dedication to my core newsletter, just because this is a large institution that basically needs a coffee report before the coffee market in London opens. So that's I guess why I'm a little busier these days, because I have 2 newsletters every day. And
so one's exclusively for that client, right?
Yes. Well, it's you can consider it sponsored by that client. I'm able to market that newsletter to other commodity trading houses, groups like Starbucks, etc. And I would say it's generally going to be only interesting for the big natural hedgers out there who speculate a little bit on the side, or who just time their hedges a little better.
Yeah.
That's what that newsletter is geared for. But the flagship newsletter, which I've been writing for about 6 years, that's geared towards anybody who has an interest across different futures asset classes, right? Whether it's coffee or the S&P 500 or the Euro US dollar, right? So my Sunday dedication is to crypto, and that's a coverage on Bitcoin, ETH, or Ethereum, and Ripple. So that crypto newsletter takes on a very different format. It's got a lot of big picture, high level news recap, which my daily Monday to Friday technical analysis newsletter does not do. So the crypto newsletter can be described as being more fundamental analysis driven, but at the end of the day, nobody really has a definitive model on how to price crypto assets. And so I wouldn't really call it fundamental analysis. Again, it's more just a big picture, high level view of what's happening in the industry of digital assets, what the PBOC, People's Bank of China, is doing around their digital renminbi, what the implications are for other currencies, what Facebook's doing with Libra, etc. So that's Sunday. And Saturday, I never rest on Saturday. I actually have an equities and ETF signal-based service, and that's more just entry exit type. Call it an insight into what I might be doing in my own account for whoever wants to glean information from that. And so that's really focused on U.S. equities and ETFs.
Okay.
But with,
Okay. Well, for anyone who is interested to know more about tradable patterns, so it's just tradablepatterns.com, right?
That's right. Yeah, so that's tradablepatterns.com.
Okay, and we will have it captioned after the interview. Actually, in between the interview, it will pop up a few times so people will know the name of your setup.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Darren, and I hope we will be talking in this channel very soon.
Always a pleasure. Okay. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.